Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today we are going to continue this. I need to get this one done. We're going bit by bit though, so I'm going to, I guess, do another prompt or something, or I'll go as long as I feel like, honestly. Yeah, I don't think I have anything to say before I get started. So let's get going. Fitness can become an unhealthy obsession. So it depends. Fitness by definition, it means that you're in good shape or like you're taking care of your health. So I don't know if they're trying to say vanity. I would say yes to vanity and I would say no to fitness. So I would have a hard time moving forward on this one. But if we're talking vanity, then I would step forward. So let's see what they say.
Obsession. As always, we'll have the people that agree come up now.
I know for me, my personal experience, I have struggled with an eating disorder before, and when I was struggling with that, I know that I was eating, we were just talking about like calories in, calories out. I know I was.
So it's interesting because when people talk about the toxic ritualistic, there's this very bizarre like divide within the toxic ritualistic. And I try to be in between this divide. But essentially, it seems like half of people act like you can never recover. You'll always struggle. This will always be a problem. It'll always be an issue. That's one half. And the other half are like her, where it's like, I'm totally recovered even though I don't have weight normalization. So that's not recovery. Remember that the toxic ritualistic, there are physical effects of it and they do need to be rectified in order to be fully recovered. You can be recovered maybe on a mental level, but I would be in a really good position to test her on that. I'd say, well, how do you feel about counting calories? I can't. Okay, then you're not recovered. Like, let's put that to bed tomorrow or today, basically. Not even tomorrow. Let's put it to bed right now. Because that means you're not recovered. No. No. Mm-mm. How do you feel about the idea of normalizing your weight? I can't because no, you're still in it. So that's where I'm like, okay, it's very easy. I think the calorie thing, it's one of the easiest ways to tell if somebody's still in it. And it is a spectrum, of course. So people can be mild, people can be more severe. But what you'll hear in a mild person is like, I just can't keep up with it. I just can't. Or it's a lot of mental bandwidth. What you'll hear in a more severe person is, I can't handle it at all. Like, it gives me so much anxiety and I just can't even think about it. See, that's kind of the tortured, for those of you guys that are on the channel, that's the tortured response. Is like, I can't even look at it. It freaks me out to even think about it. I'm so anxious. Whereas the MSP level of severity, the mid-sized princess level of severity of the toxic ritualistic is like, I can't keep up with it. It's too much mental bandwidth. It's too hard, like as if it's rocket science. It's not. Just say you don't, like, what would be a non-TR response? I don't want to. I don't want to count them. Okay. It's really that simple. But people don't usually say that. And I guarantee you, if I said that to her, she wouldn't say that. She'd say, it's in my past, I have this. Okay, so then you are in it still, It's frustrating, but it's kind of like, it's like pinning down a slippery, wet fish. Okay? That's kind of how it is. And it's really easy to that's a very easy, like, litmus test is how do you respond to that? And again, different levels of severity, but yeah. All right, let's continue.
Was eating less calories than I was exercising out. So I would eat like 300 calories and then I'd burn off 400. And so exercise was a really unhealthy obsession
So that was a reductive part of a hinge cycle, more than likely.
for me at that time. And I know that a lot of things influence me, such as like social media and the internet and things like the inspiration.
Yeah, so a lot of that too. People that are still in the toxic ritualistic, they will always blame society too. So you can tell she's really in it. I'm able to tell she's not even, like, there isn't even a shred. Because people that are truly recovered, they will say, like, I did this to myself. They'll take accountability. I believed in something that wasn't real. I was stupid. I failed at taking care of my health. I thought, I fell into this way too deep, or etc. I won't do that to myself again, right? These are more like healed or recovered responses rather than insisting it was society's fault. And people that are tortured or recovered tortured, it would be someone like me who will be like, I was traumatized as a child and that's what led me to this. But I've dealt with that and I'm not going to use this as a coping strategy anymore. So that is a very that is you recovered because you're saying where it actually came from. But a lot of people won't, which you don't really have to. But then again, don't try to act like you've recovered then. Don't get on here and talk about it if you're not willing to talk about it. Not everybody has to be an activistic person. Not everybody has to be a toxic ritualistic recovery advocate. You don't have to. It's okay. Like, if you're not there, if you're not strong, then don't talk about it. I understand it can be private for a lot of people, and maybe some people want to forget, honestly. I can understand that too. That's not me. But I'm just saying, if you're using yourself as an example of somebody who has recovered, I don't like it if you're clearly not recovered. And to me, you're not. And my first sign of evidence is a lack of body size normalization. That is going to be the number one red flag. And I would have to push and ask you, and I could see some of the logic already logicking. I can see some of the toxic ritualistic mindsets already going on in her, within her just talking a little bit, because I think she's still pretty severe. It's easier to tell if somebody's severe. If somebody's more mild, it's a little harder. You have to kind of look more at, like, it'd be like a fitness bro who's it's a little too much bulking and cutting, that could kind of hide an MSP or a mid-sized princess level of severity of hinge, where it's not always the most severe thing in the world, I think people forget that, but that is a way that I think you could see it in a lot of fitness bros specifically. It's like an absolute obsession with continuing to bulk and cut and bulk and cut and bulk and cut, like over and over and over again, forever ad nauseum. That can be a way to disguise a hinge issue, especially if those bulks are super dirty and like really drastic, that kind of thing. So look for physical evidence. That's what you always have to look for if you're talking about this issue or if somebody's talking about it. Look at body size normalization. That's a huge one because especially at her size, that takes a lot to maintain. So it really, really does. It takes a lot of calories. It takes a lot of inactivity to maintain her size. And we need to renormalize reality when it comes to this. And I'm here to be like, it's a lot of calories, babe. I'm 6'1". I'm going to be eating at a maintenance calories, which I'm pretty active because I have an active job and stuff, but my maintenance is 2825 basically. So we'll just say 2800. That's to maintain at 195 as a 6'1" man. How much do you think her maintenance would be at an average size? And how far away is her daily consumption from that? It takes a lot to maintain that size. If somebody's just a little bit thick or whatever, that's different. It's not that hard. But if somebody's significantly big, it takes a lot. And so there's something wrong, typically. Unless if somebody is on it or whatever, or they're trying to get out of that. In my opinion, if somebody has a toxic ritualistic thing going on, I do think slow and sustained is best, 100,000%. And in very severe cases of the TR, I think counting calories is best. It keeps you realistic. And again, a lot of people that have the TR, they don't want to count because it takes the magic out. It takes all the doubt out, and it basically destroys the whole problem, which is hard to let go of when you're in the problem. Whereas for me, I burned it all down. It's thrown out. It's gone, basically. It's really easy for me to count. I don't have any emotion about counting whatsoever. Literally none. And yeah, I might even count forever, honestly. It just doesn't even bother me at all at this point. But for me, it's more so a matter of like, in my vanity weight era, I've reached a certain point where I have more of a standard for myself. And I don't want to go backwards ever again. I don't ever want to gain fat ever again. So just because of how miserable it was to lose this weight in the vanity weight era, I don't ever want to do that again. Like, I'm literally at that point. I have a lot of pride about what I've accomplished. I don't want to lose any of it. That's just me, though. Again, I would never put my vanity standards onto anybody else, period. That is really stupid. So I would never do that. But I'm just saying that is how much I don't care about counting, is I think I could literally do it forever and I wouldn't even care. It's so like nothing to me. And especially when I'm totally in maintenance, or especially in the years to come, it's like where I don't have to be like totally on it all the time. But it's like not a big deal for me, basically. That's all I'm trying to say, is that it's that easy at this point. And coming from that past, it's like, okay, because people forget too, like it's not just about not eating too much, it's also about eating enough. You know, I'm currently coming out of the deficit over a slow and sustained period of time, meaning that even if I don't feel totally full or like totally hungry one day, I still need to eat that 100 more calories because I have a goal towards maintenance. Why? Because I'm not trying to lose weight literally forever. So that's the thing too. And I need to take a break for my health and quite frankly, for my vanity as well at this time. I'm getting a bit of a diminished return for what it's worth, which again, that takes being realistic, not toxic ritualistic. You have to be able to look at how you feel and look at what's going on and paying attention and keeping things realistic. That can be hard. So I'm just saying, okay?
And pro-ana and pro-myocytes, but that's what made me think that exercise was the only way to lose weight and the only way to become what I wanted to be.
It's not the only way to lose weight, but it is. I will always talk to you guys about it. It's really important because it changes the way your brain thinks. It makes your brain more dopaminergic over a long period of time. So again, you need to think about it in terms of months, like 6 months to 2 years of going to the gym and how that changes your brain. That's a very long segment of time. A lot of people think I can go to the gym for 3 weeks and see a difference. That's how a lot of fitness influencers promote it. I don't think that that's the reality for a lot of super morbidly obese people. People need to think about it, especially from an obese standpoint, as I'm going to get these results, particularly in the brain, over years, over like 2 years or a year. You know, think of it in terms of like a set long amount of time when you'll get the benefit. You also have the blood sugar benefits of lifting weights that also help with, you know, your hunger cues and things like that. And there's a lot of benefits to it that don't have to do directly with the scale, as well as vanity benefits, as well as having more muscle on your body to have more caloric leverage, and as well as more muscle, which has more hormones that oppose some of the hormones that are coming from your fat, especially from very big sizes where those fat produced hormones can be really drastic and affect your ability to do this or not. So exercise is really important, but as far as number on the scale important, it's not the only way to do it. That's not true. But again, there is a quality of weight loss too, not just a quantity. And I always talk about the quality aspect.
I don't know if my mom will appreciate me talking about this, but my mom used to be a weight loss and fitness coach. It consumed a lot of her life for like the early 2010s when it was really popular to be in that sort of thing. And it affected me a lot more as a kid, watching her like obsess over working out every single day and how much weight she was losing. And I was just like really hurt by a lot of it, actually. Just like it's affecting the people around you, especially your kids. It was like, I can't do something right now, or I can't do this.
Okay, I was like, can you say how it affected? Let me see.
Because I have to put in my workout. And it's like putting the people that you love on the back burner because.
Wow, what a toxic ritualistic drive. What a horrible thing to say. So what I will say is that this is definitely toxic ritualistic reinforcement from a hinge perspective, although it probably would pressure somebody that is overly reductive to go further into their behavior, because that is a really negative way to talk about it, in my opinion, to use guilt or shame. Again, she's kind of shaming or guilting her mother for what she was doing. I don't think that that works at all within the toxic ritualistic. What works is reality. So if your mother was overtraining, then it would be talking about like rest days. Rest days are also important. That would be a way to talk about it. If it's, well, do you think that there's some flexibility you could have? Like maybe we could go out and do this thing instead of you go to the gym right now and you could just go later? That's a better question. If everybody's sitting around watching TV, what difference does it make if your mom works out? You also have to understand too that within that context, if she was working in that space, and that's also her job. So it's kind of like, which again, maybe there's mom guilt or whatever, or maybe her mom was like overworking, but you cannot, overworking or being a workaholic is not the same thing as being fit. So that's a separate issue, which again, the toxic ritualistic, they always combine everything. So it's like, what is the actual issue you had with your mom? And actually talk about the heart of the issue. Was she too much of a workaholic? Or was it that you had an issue, maybe she did have an issue too, and you guys were reinforcing each other? And then you're still continuing to reinforce to this day. Which again, it's subconscious, you know, it's not necessarily something intentional, but I think that guilt and shame aspect, I don't think it's good. I really don't. I just don't. I wouldn't mess with it personally. I think logic and reason and physical reality, those are going to be your ways of actually helping somebody with the issue. So again, mentioning things like rest days, or don't you think that you could go to the gym at a different time? Like maybe switch the day or something? Because unless if you're in a very specific process, you don't have to be as strict. I have to be very strict right now, personally, because I'm doing my reverse dieting process. So I have to keep it as exact as possible. As well as when I was in the vanity weight era, I needed to keep everything as exact as possible so that I could keep track of the scale, to keep track of what I needed to consume for that vanity weight goal. And I still have to be strict until Christmas, like around then I could be more flexible. But even still, Thanksgiving is on a Thursday. I typically go to the gym on Thursday. I'm probably going to have to go on Friday instead. So I'm going to have to switch days. Am I going to die? No, I'm not. And that's even during a very strict process that is difficult psychologically, which is reverse dieting. which is climbing out of a deficit over time. So even in a very strict time, it's not impossible to shift the gym day. And if it is impossible, then that's where it's like, okay, you're not being reasonable or you're not being logical anymore, mother, you know? That would be a way to actually have that conversation. In my opinion, you're appealing to logic, reason, and physical reality.
As of something else, like going to the gym or working out.
Yeah, I think for me, I usually think to sports, and then for work-related things, whether that's like modeling or military stuff or whatever. I think people can go to some very unhealthy extremes and become obsessed with it when trying to reach some of these goals, and then it can, I think, some of it can go back into some of the mental health with body dysmorphia, where you can have people that have very unrealistic ideals, and you see people with implants that are drastically changing their body.
That's vanity.
Because they're
so that's not fitness. That's more so vanity. Which, yes, vanity can be an issue. You can go out of control with it, and it can be crazy. And you have to remember, I mean, not to be pursuing beauty so hard that you're starting to turn ugly. I mean, I know that that's harsh, but I just have to be real about it. It can happen. People can go nuts over it. For me personally, I was like, oh gosh, like I am looking busted in this deficit. Like I need to take a break. Like I need to recover a bit. I need to get my nutrition up. Like I can see that there's problems that will likely get worse if I were to just continue. And again, if the whole point is vanity, but that's where I'm currently at. If somebody is like really big, like if you're morbidly obese, you need to lose. You just need to lose. If you're super morbidly obese, you need to lose. You might need to be on a level or like at a time where you're not losing. Like you might still have to take breaks and stuff. But that should still be your priority if you're obese. It's not excusable. And even if you're overweight, you need to lose. So it's like, but once you're at a vanity level, you don't anymore. So it's like, you're pursuing vanity. You need to make sure that, like I said, that you're not becoming uglier in your pursuit of vanity. People can go crazy over that. Absolutely.
obsessed with not just the fitness, but also the look. And so, it's a lot of that internet and what you're talking about with how that culture has been influencing much more and more. And, growing up.
It's important to have your own standards. It's important to be self-directed. I think throughout the entire journey, it's important to be self-directed. I think part of the toxic ritualistic is you look for a herd mentality around body size or comparison. Everything is competition, comparison, herd, am I the fattest person in the room? Everything is like that. And that very easily translates to vanity, where you can compare how you look to other people, and you need to just be like the best version of yourself that you can be. And like if you're pursuing vanity, like you don't need to be pursuing, or you don't need to be looking at every other person and what they have and what you don't. That logic can very easily transfer, but it's not a good thing to do that. Like you need to be looking at yourself and just like, what can you do? Like personally, I started plucking my eyebrows, for example. That's a vanity aspect, but I'm not looking at Instagram and looking at everybody's eyebrows and, being jealous of somebody else's eyebrows. I'm looking at my own and being like, oh, no. And then I pluck, It's that simple. I like to do it a little bit at a time. That's just my personal style because that works for me. But, I have Jupiter and Virgo, you guys. So I like a little bit every day. I'm one of those. I'm like in a little bit every day girly pop, especially as I've gotten in touch with my Virgo, especially this year. My inner Virgo side, the Jupiter aspect. But anyways, I'm just saying I like that style, whereas like other people like to just go get it done, or you kind of do the whole thing at like once. I'd prefer to just do it myself slowly and steadily. That's how I like to do things. But that's all personal. Vanity is very personal. It's really individual. And when you try not to be, then that's, I think, when you get into trouble. because you need to have your own standards. And a lot of people don't want to take the leadership or the initiative to have their own standards when it comes to vanity, but it's really important. And you have to remember too that, you know, if you're not attractive to somebody, you'll be attracted to somebody else, kind of thing, you know. But that's just a different conversation, honestly. You need to have your own standards. I'm just going to say that over and over again when it comes to vanity. You need to have your own standards.
A lot younger, that was not something that we were exposed to, you know, really in the 80s and 90s. You would have a curated image and, you know, you'd have like MTV and things like that where there was that, but it wasn't exposed and in your face and from uncurated sources and people that are your age, but from all kinds of different walks of life.
Again, this issue has been going on, and it certainly was going on in the 80s and 90s. The TR was very alive and well, and likely before that as well. It's been going on for a long time. I think it was even, you know, maybe at a high point in the 80s and 90s, if you want to be real about it. It's still bad now, but I don't know. It just seems like everybody's kind of crazy now. I know that's bad to say, but I'm just being real. It just seems like that now. But maybe that's just, you know, I told you guys, I'm starting to live like a lesbian auntie lifestyle. So sometimes I have a little bit of lesbian auntie hater energy, but, you know, I'm in my 30s now, so I can be irrelevant now. And my cousin has a baby, so I consider my cousin's baby my niece. So I'm full on in the lifestyle. I'm like fully into it. Like when my cousin's like, why don't you come over earlier? And I was like, because I'm not on mommy time. I'm on lesbian auntie life. I'm on lesbian auntie time. Like, I was up late last night and I woke up late. You know? I don't go to a toddler rave at 9 a.m. I'm just not on that wavelength. I'm just not. And that's okay. You know, that's no shade. That's no hate. But I'm just saying, maybe I'm out of touch with some of the trends and stuff. And that's okay too. Because Gen Z, y'all are going to have your own standards. Have your own standard. You know, beauty, it's kind of I've considered a transcendent concept. So it's like there's a lot of different versions of beauty. It's like, what does it mean to have, what does good mean? There's a lot of different versions of good. Not that I believe in a completely subjective reality, but I'm not trying to have a freaking philosophical discussion. What I'm trying to tell you is beauty is something that people have an idea of what it means in their mind. And as a collective, we all have an idea, but it shows up in a lot of different ways. Like somebody can have beautiful blue eyes or beautiful brown eyes or beautiful green eyes. They're all beautiful, but they look different. That's what I'm trying to say. So don't consider it that. So it's like if you're attracted to this color of eye or whatever, it doesn't mean that all the other ones are ugly. It just means that that's what you like. Personally, that's your subjective desire, which is fine. But as far as pursuing beauty, it's just, you know, like when you see eyebrow hairs out of line, you just pluck it. You know what I'm saying? It's not that complicated, but it's like people make it too complicated, but they also oversimplify it. Like it's just weird. It's a weird concept. I don't think that we do a good enough job talking about beauty. It's like super weirdly stigmatized to talk about beauty when it comes to weight. And I think it's so taboo that it just turns really weird. It's kind of like when the conversation about like, you know, sex education and stuff, where if it's like too, like nobody ever talks about it, then it can just get really weird. Then it's like, well, who are you learning about it from then? You know, and like, are they okay or are they weird? And so I just think suppression in that sense, like, I don't know why, but vanity in terms of weight or whatever, it's so taboo. It's literally like how conversations about sex used to be. And I don't think that it's helpful. And it's like, you need to like, I think parents need to have these conversations. Like, I think a parent needs to have a conversation with their kid about vanity, about the pursuit of beauty and like what that means and all that stuff. Like, I think that is a conversation that needs to come up, and how that interacts with weight. Like, I think we need to teach generations how to view it more realistically rather than just being like, oh, you'll figure it out kind of thing, That's my opinion.
Not a filter on that, and I think that's how people can get so obsessed with it, because they just have all the access.
So like you said about modeling, I started modeling about 2 years ago. And when I first came in, she was like, we measured myself and, that was all cool. And I see myself as a pretty fit woman. I have been my entire life. I've been this weight for a reasonable amount of time. She measured me and she was like, you're a plus size model. And for a really long time, that kind of just weighed on my conscience. And so I would overly obsess, hitting 5 days at the gym.
Well, again, that's a little bit different too, because we're talking about a career. So if you're in a career where it is based upon your looks, or if you're an athlete or something like that, then that does require a special amount of care, because you're going to have pressure to look a certain way. And some of that is going to be valid and some of that is not going to be valid. But that's the same thing as having any kind of boundary with any kind of job, which again is something that is really not normalized at all in American society at all. Like, we do not talk about what boundaries are appropriate for a job or not. And instead, now you just have like, no boundary is acceptable, or I don't want to ever listen to a job for any reason. And that's like literally where people go. And I think that's especially where young people go. It's like, I don't want to have any standard on me at all. Or it's like, I know as a millennial, like my generation was like, any boundary at all with your job is stupid and bad, and you shouldn't have it. And it's like, oh my gosh, And for me, like, I was always kind of in between, because again, I have that Virgo side. I don't like to be lazy. I'm a good worker, but I also have boundaries. I had chapel boundaries before chapel did. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do everything for this amount of pay. I'm not going to do that. So I feel like I had a decent balance, and I never got fired from a job. I've never been fired before. Every job I've left, I've quit. So, I mean, there is a middle ground there. So again, that's also a conversation that needs to be had. But it's like, these are all kind of different. Like, they're not totally related to weight, but they are like tangentially related within certain niche things. So it's like, yeah, if you're in an industry that requires you to have a certain standard for your looks and for your fitness, you do need to have appropriate boundaries, but you also have to accept some appropriate boundaries or some appropriate standards from who you're working for, and also what you're appealing to and all that stuff. So it's tough. If you're in a line of work that requires you to look a certain way, it does add an added pressure, and you need to be really on guard that you're not becoming toxically ritualistic in the process. You need to make sure it's not an abusive work environment. And you need to also make sure that if you have the toxic ritualistic going on, that this job is not reinforcing the problem and making it worse, or it's not making it to where you personally cannot recover if you're in this industry. Because if you have that problem and you're in that industry, it's not worth it. If it's preventing you from getting out, then you need to drop it like a sack of potatoes. It's the same thing as somebody with Hinge being a mukbanger on YouTube. You need to quit. It's a very toxic, ritualistic, reinforcing thing to do that, to have to eat a lot on camera at least once a week. That is way too much. It's way too much temptation in that, or it's too reinforcing. So it's like, it's a hell no. And I'm the bitch that will say, you're going to have to quit, because your life is more important than that. It's the same thing if you're a BOPO influencer and you're very big and you have all these brand deals from very big clothes, you might have to let that go. If you're with a boyfriend that is, you know, into you for that size, you might have to let it go. Your life, you might have to let him go. Your life matters more than any of these things. And people in the TR, they will justify and justify and justify, but it's a load of bullshit. And I will tell you it's a load of bullshit. Because like I told you many times on this channel, I'm never going to reinforce you. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. So anyways, let's continue.
You know, calorie deficit, all of that. My hair started falling out. I started noticing my skin was breaking out.
You need to be careful.
All of these things.
Yeah, you can lose beauty in the pursuit of beauty. It happens.
And then again, like I would not be spending time doing the things I wanted to do because I was consumed in being skinny. But then I was just like, girl, you look fine. And I think a lot of people don't think that way. But my mom raised me to be a very, very disciplined woman and to see all aspects of life. And I am so blessed to be able to look at myself and truly love myself. But a lot of people don't have that opportunity. And so it continues to be an addiction.
You guys mentioned a good point over there about
I agree with her that self-love is definitely a huge antidote, or it's a huge aspect that is lacking within the toxic ritualistic. So it will, if you develop self-love, and true self-love, not like fake, you know, fat acceptance self-love, like actual, like, I'm going to care for myself, I'm going to care for my body, that type of thing. Even if I don't feel like it, I'm going to care. That does quell the fires of the toxic ritualistic. It's very non-reinforcing. So, like, for example, this is just a really easy example to throw out there, but when I came to terms with my sexuality, that took the toxic ritualistic drive, it like cut it in half. So it took out a lot of that. So you have to think of it as like, it will help you on a journey. It was like one of the first steps towards getting out of it. So it's like, there is a relationship with self-love and the TR. It does de-escalate it pretty heavily, in my opinion.
detrimental it can be to your family life if it's all you focus on. I wasn't even thinking about that at first, but that definitely.
Again, that goes into workaholism in general. It's kind of a different discussion, in my opinion. But again, it's one that needs to be had. You know, workaholism is also a problem. It is very real. I've slipped into it a couple times. Again, that Virgo doesn't always serve me. I have to be a little careful with that. But also, I've been really lazy too. Again, though, I've been in the toxic ritualistic. So it's like I've had all these like black and white thoughts throughout a lot of times in my life. So I've had times where I'm like super workaholic, and then I've had times where I'm super lazy. It's weird. I think I'm getting to a balance now, and I'm starting to understand. And like I said, I've gotten in touch with my inner Virgo, where it's like, okay, it's a little bit every day. And that's helped me personally. But I'm just saying that's something that we're all going to have to consider within ourselves. We all have to consider work-life balance. We all have to consider what's appropriate, what's not, what's appropriate for this time of our life, what's appropriate for that time of our life. But it's not directly related to body size or to fitness, is my overall point. So again, you need to reflect on that within yourself. Again, you're never going to hear me advocate for laziness, but I can acknowledge that workaholism is a problem, and it can be a way, you know, it can be avoidant. Just put it to you that way. It's not always healthy, okay? Because sometimes people work a lot because they're trying to avoid people. You know, they're trying to avoid intimacy, or they're trying to avoid deeper connection with their families, or they're trying to avoid their kids, or they're trying to avoid shit. You know, it's like, so you need to think about that. But that is a different discussion. It doesn't really have to do with the TR, other than tangentially.
It can be true. I guess I was kind of leaning towards the rich pianas of people that take things too far, ingest their bodies, and then ultimately it takes their life. At that point, yeah, it's certainly an obsession that's gone too far. Social media might have a big impact where it'll make someone feel a certain way. People start to inject their bodies with performance-enhancing drugs, things they don't really know what they're putting in their body. It might be some backwoods bathtub concoction that somebody makes, all in hopes to, add to that workout just because they think it's going to make them that much better. I feel like there's a certain time last year where I just kept seeing name after name of influencer that, dying, going to the hospital. I mean, I feel like for several months in a row, I saw like 4 or 5 people die. Their heart starts to explode.
Yeah, well, I think that we covered kind of all the range on that, so I guess the time would be now to bring in.
Yeah. You gotta have your own standards. I'm gonna keep saying that. And you also have to have boundaries too. People don't talk about that, but there are boundaries within beauty too. Like, I know a lot of you guys hate Taylor Swift, but she has this line on Clara Bow, which again, I thought about this line a lot in my Tortured era, but it's a song where she says, "Beauty is a beast that roars, down on all fours, demanding more." So you got to be able to say no to that beast too. I agree with her there. I really like the line. It's something that I've kept in mind a lot, and I still think about it a lot in my vanity weight era, because I agree with her. It is a beast that roars, and you have to be able to tell that beast no. So be careful with that and don't go crazy. It's really important to have, boundaries are really, really important. Healthy boundaries are so important. And I'm telling you that as somebody who has struggled all the while. Like, I feel like my whole life, I think I'm just in my 30s reaching a point of healthy boundaries. It was really hard for me. I've had, again, toxic ritualistic boundaries, etc. The hinge, it's really weird. It's very vacillating. So it's like I have no boundaries, or I have too many, or it's like, ugh, it's too much. And it's like in every area of life, it's, ugh. But I think it is kind of a hinge thing, in my opinion. So I think it is a way where that logic can go to other aspects of life if you have a severe issue. So be very aware if you have hinge, or if you're struggling with that, really think about boundaries, not even just with food, but with everything. Like, are you all over the place in every single area? It's like, I have way too strong here, way too lax here, way too this, way too that. Or am I going through phases where it's like, I don't care about it at all. No, all I care about is that. It's like, you need to find a sense of balance, For my Astro girlies, embrace that Libra energy that I personally can't stand. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's just because I'm a Scorpio rising. And so it's just, Libra energy is uncomfortable for me. It's too calm and reasonable and balanced. I'm like, ugh, it's too gray and seeing both sides. It's like, ew, who wants to do that? No, I'm just kidding. It's just I have a hard time with it personally, but I've really been forced to deal with it and grow it. And if you guys are Astro girlies and boilies, there has been a lot of Libra focus the past few years. So you've probably learned a lot of Libra lessons, even if you're not aware of it. And so just keep that in mind. But that balancing aspect is really important. And it's something that I've literally had to cultivate from nothing. Okay. But yeah. We do love Libras. We do. We have to. No, I'm just kidding. No, we do. Anyways, I'm going to move on. I'm being really cheesy. Let's finish this out.
Disagree. So,
after everything that was said, I mean, I pretty much agree with, I kind of agree with the topic now.
Okay.
But,
well, could you maybe give us maybe what you were thinking originally when you're thinking okay, maybe it can't be unhealthy. What were you thinking?
The thing that I was thinking of is, just the fitness part. I feel like a lot of the things that were said might stem from other things. I mean, maybe mental problems and stuff like that. Or people were saying social media. I think it could stem from that. I mean, there was a point in my life where I was addicted to going to the gym every day. It was the only thing I looked forward to with my day, and I wanted to go twice a day, 3 times a day, as much as I could. And at that point in my life, I felt better than I ever have. And so, I mean, I was addicted to it and I felt great. And thankfully, I never, wanted to get bigger, wanted to get stronger, wanted to.
It's okay to be active as long as you rest and you eat enough. So typically, especially if, you're young and able-bodied and whatnot, or you have the time or whatever, you can be highly active, but you do have to eat enough and you have to sleep enough. So you have to rest enough. And then you're probably fine. But, yeah, that has to be said. So that's probably why he felt fine, because he was probably eating enough and sleeping enough. So, yeah. Again, balance in all things. So you do have to compensate for that. If you're working out a lot, you do need to compensate for that. But there's nothing wrong with being active. There's literally nothing wrong with it.
Hop on tests or anything like that and, ruin my life. Things you guys were saying maybe stem from something else. Maybe there's some deeper problem.
For my runners, too. I know a lot of you guys are runners. A lot of you guys and gals are runners. You need to eat enough and you need to rest enough. Otherwise, it can be harmful, because it's stressful. But if you're doing enough, then you're fine. You can usually handle it. Unless if you're super obese or whatever, don't. It will kill your knees. Please. Please don't. But anyways, again, it all comes down to being reasonable, which is really hard. It's really hard to be reasonable when you're in the TR, and I understand that better than anybody. But it's you got to learn to be reasonable. You just have to.
Problems that are going on rather than just fitness and somebody going to the gym caused all these problems.
What do you guys think about that? Do you think it's more the fitness itself or the external factors?
I'd say probably more of the external stuff. You're using fitness as a coping mechanism a lot of times to treat whatever it is or try and achieve whatever goal it is, or that kind of thing. And then a lot of the substance stuff, it comes in as, again, not because somebody's a user, but again, because they're just addicted to trying to achieve whatever it is.
I'd say vanity can become an unhealthy obsession. That's what I would have said if I was there.
I don't know, maybe just in your case it was fitness only, or was the fitness because you were okay, now as a wrestler I feel the best that I ever have, that I'm going to the gym 3 times, or was it just purely because I'm hitting the gym that it was?
At the point when I started hitting the gym more, it was kind of just purely just to hit the gym. I mean, I was going with my brother and stuff like that, so I mean, had somebody to hang out with. And then eventually I started noticing changes, and so I just wanted to keep lifting. It was exciting to me at that point.
Okay, those changes, was that just physical changes, or was it also changing the way you interacted with the world and the way people interacted with you?
I would say a little bit of both. I mean, the physical changes, of course, that's, what a lot of people look for, but it kind of gave me more confidence, made me feel if I did nothing during the day but hit the gym, that I accomplished, something during that day. So, gave me a lot of rewards going to the gym.
I think it has a lot to do with your gender as well, because men can handle higher cortisol levels, and women, we can't. We're meant to have a little bit of fat on our body because, when in prehistoric times, we were the ones.
Can definitely be different, for sure. But by the same standard, women do need a lot less food, So that also is true as well. But yes, I do agree. I do agree with her. But there is a catch-22 with that too. So it's I think that he absolutely could tolerate it, especially being a young man. But again, he probably was eating enough and resting enough. And I do think women can do a lot too. But again, eat enough and rest enough, which a lot of women don't want to do that, or they don't do that. So then that's going to be a problem, And on average, women need an hour more of sleep than men do on average. So obviously that's going to be a little different for every single person. But it just goes to show there is some difference. There are some differences.
Staying in the caves, protecting our children with our weight. And so we would be the ones eating mass amounts of foods. And so when we're constantly raising our cortisol levels, that is just very unhealthy to us, to our brain levels, to our every single nutrient in our body. Men, you guys can take it, nothing against you guys, but you guys can take it. And I think a lot of people that start their fitness journeys don't know that there is a difference biologically between women and men and how much we can take. So at first I was going 5 days a week, and like you said, it would give me something to look forward to, and I felt rewarded even when I would do nothing. But it affects our bodies a lot differently, as well as, you know, cold plunges and stuff, like just simple things that like add to the...
I'm not really a huge fan of that because it's very anti-thyroid. So I don't know what the craze is, but I'm not going to be a part of it personally. But no, like if you're hypo, do not cold plunge. Do not.
Fitness journey, like women can't do so much of that. And I wish it was like more known that we are not supposed to be putting ourselves through that. But yeah, we just can't handle that.
You said that you started to notice weren't doing anything else for the day, but you went to the gym, that you still felt good about it. At what point?
Again, you need to be reasonable regardless. So I do agree that there are differences. But I would be more specific. I think women, if we're talking purely biological, what I've heard and what I agree with is women do not do as well with high levels of adrenaline. It's like very difficult for a woman to handle high levels of adrenaline. Whereas for men, it can be like very thrilling, or, you know, it's just a little bit different. Whereas men cannot handle higher levels of estrogen. So you have to think about that too. It's like, you know, maybe the guy who drinks and he has a fatty liver, he's really aggressive, you know, or he's really angry in a way that maybe a woman wouldn't be in the same way, because she can tolerate that elevated estrogen a bit more. She might be a little less moody from having higher estrogen. So you have to think of it as like, we do have certain limits too, for sure. And again, that can affect like certain aspects of diet and things like that, where women can tolerate estrogen a bit better. But again, you need to not have a fatty liver. I'm going to keep saying that, which nobody ever talks about that either. But you should not be ever drinking if you have a fatty liver. I hate that I have to say that. It drives me nuts that that is just not known. But here we are. But yeah, you know, it's like you have to consider all these things. Like, there are individual aspects, and you need to think about yourself and like who you are and what you can handle and all these different things. But you need to be honest with yourself. Remember that healing the toxic ritualistic is radical self-honesty. You know, it's radical self-realism. It's accountability. Ultimately.
Point of you lacking on your other responsibilities, but you're only going to the gym, do you think it would still be acceptable, or would you start to dog on yourself?
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And, you know, I guess at that point in my life, I was just a high school student, you know, so I didn't really have that much responsibilities to really care about. Sure. Or I was in college, you know, and so, I mean, college life, stuff like that, you don't really care about all that other stuff. So, I mean, it didn't affect me that much. But in this point in my life, yeah, if I was on that same, you know, kind of wavelength and going to the gym, not caring about anything else, I think that would definitely take much more of a mental toll on me. So I definitely see what you're saying. Yeah.
Fit people.
Okay. Alrighty, so I will go ahead and talk to you guys later. I hope that you guys have a good rest of your day, night, etc. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.